Impact Teams Radio. Welcome to Impact Teams Radio, the show where we explore what it takes to be a leader of the leaders in corporate America. Get ready to be inspired and discover proven tips for going from average to exceptional. Now, here's your host and guide, Tony Sherman.
Hello and welcome to Impact Teams Radio. I'm your host and guide, Tony Sherman, and we have another action-packed episode here. And today I have a guest from corporate America, specifically the financial side, which I'm very intrigued at because we don't have very many financially adept guests. So my guest today is Alex Stephen, and Alex comes to us. He actually lives in the same town as I do, and we've both lived here for ages and just had our first coffee together a couple of weeks ago. So it may be a small world, but sometimes it's big enough to hide two people in the same town. Alex, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here on your show.
Well, thank you very much. Alex, the first thing I do is I step away from the mic for a minute or two and ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners, and so they can get a sense of who you are and put that as a context for when we're discussing leadership.
Yeah, well, again, I'm Alex Stephen, and from the accent you could tell I'm from Trinidad in the Caribbean. I've been in the United States 33 years now. And I came to go to school here. I went to Howard University, entered corporate America in public accounting, the big 8 firm Touche Ross in Washington, D.C., and moved to Massachusetts, Marlboro, about 25 years ago or plus, and worked for a major financial institution downtown in auditing for a couple of years. And I didn't like accounting that much, although I had my CPA, and nothing against the CPAs or accountants on this call. And I made the switch to corporate lending, which in itself was a challenge, and people told me I wouldn't get through, but I did get through, and that's where I made my career, in corporate lending. And I've left corporate America about 6 years now, and I have my own business, so to speak, where I'm really following my passion. And what I do is by sharing the wisdoms from my life journey of raising a successful deaf child and making a life-altering decision, I'm now empowering people to transform their lives to one of freedom and fulfillment. So I'm an author, a speaker, a transformation coach, and TV personality. I host my own TV show, and Tony was a guest on my show a while back. And I'm a father and grandfather. So that's who I am, to give you a little flavor of my background.
I was going to say, and that's just a small flavoring, a quick insight into who you are. So if we go back into the corporate side initially, Alex, and ask you to look back over that arc of that career, could you pick out one or two wins in that career that you could share with our listeners? And in fact, before we do that, I jump into that so quickly. I did ask you if you could pick up a quote to frame this session in. So I wonder if you could pull out a quote for us.
Well, one of the quotes I like, and I know when I share this, it really resonates with people, is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's by Lao Tzu. I love that quote. And it goes for all of us. When we're ready and we make that commitment, we will see opportunities, we'll see the teachers, we'll get the ideas to move forward.
And that's so true, isn't it? Because it's that reticular effect where once you commit to something, you see opportunity, you see it everywhere. Like if you're going to buy yourself a red Ford Fiesta, suddenly the road is full of red Ford Fiestas.
Yeah, it keeps noticing it. Yeah.
So, Alex, as I was going to say, if we go back over the arc of your career and ask you to look at one or two wins that you've had and to share with us, first of all, the wins, but also what you learnt about them from a leadership context.
Well, I'll go sort of chronological here. When I worked for Touche Ross in Washington, D.C., it was my first job out of corporate America. And I like to share somewhere in the show how I interviewed for this job. It has a good lesson in it. But one of the things I remembered, just coming out of school, I got the job before I graduated and started in the January after I graduated in December. And one of the things people always, the people I work for, the supervisors, said, I always have interpersonal skills. The way I work with the clients, they always like me. And one of the things the senior managers were saying, that's not a good thing as an auditor for people to like you. but that was just, the sort of my personality, how I was. And one of the big wins for me, and it was good for the firm too, I remember after like 5 or 6 months, they sent me out on my own. First time, went out to this job, and this client was very dissatisfied. Somebody sent a handwritten letter. It wasn't really professional. She showed it to me. I said it was not from me. Somebody from the office sent it. And she did not pull any of the files. I couldn't do my audit. And I had to sit down and listen to her first because she was irate. She was swearing at me at the firm and everything. And I said, okay, you finished? She said, yeah. I said, okay. We have two choices. You either don't pull the files for me and I go back to D.C. This job was in Maryland. And the thing is, my firm will still get paid. You will be in trouble with your management. Or you could pull the files for me. I'll wait. And as you pull them, I'll start to do my audit. So long story short, she pulled the file. I finished the audit before time. Everything was good. And the next year, I was on another job in Virginia, and she requested, I had to leave that job to go to Maryland because she requested she doesn't want anybody else but me to do the audit the next year. And what it did for the firm, it really saved the firm from the perception she had from getting a handwritten letter, and it wasn't really professional. She thought the person was disrespecting her. And it appeared that way, but one of the things I did was to listen to her, and I learned, and this helped me, groom me, as I move forward in my career, is that you have to listen to people. Don't jump to conclusions. Give them the opportunity. Give them their 1 or 2 minutes, and then, speak to them. So that was a big win for me early in my career.
Absolutely. I mean, there's two big wins there that I can see. The first is, as a young person out doing your first major job on your own, to be able to get through that, because it must have been a fairly harrowing experience. Yeah. And then secondly, when you get requested back the next year, that cements that your approach to this was correct.
Yes.
Because it may have been a tactically good thing that may not have been strategically good. Yeah. But in fact, coming back the next year shows it was both tactically good and strategically good.
Yes. And I did my exit interview, as usual with her. I presented my findings, what they had to improve on. So it didn't mitigate how I presented my report and my findings.
No, I'm sure not. Yes. Yeah. So thank you for that. Do you have any more wins before we have a look at a challenge?
Yeah, I remember, and this is, and it seems like this is another job when I was a lender. It was the second or third place I requested to go there to work in the inner city. And I wanted to help those clients there who didn't have really the knowledge of getting credit, and they needed to be educated and hold their hand. It was a little different than working with the big multinational corporations downtown. And the first file my team leader handed me, he said, decline this loan. So I said, okay, I never declined a loan in my life, because when you work with 3M, IBM, Philip Morris, you don't decline those loans. You just find a way to give them what they want. So I said, could I read it? He said, yeah. So I read the file, I looked at it, and I went back to him, and I said, I cannot decline this. You have to find somebody else. I cannot sign a decline letter. And he said, why? I said, I don't see any reason why. He said, but the people do have credit history. And I said, but look at their financial history, how they came along. They were immigrants, and they borrowed money from their relatives, and they paid it back in 6 months. So I said, they're debt-free. Where I come from, that's a good thing. And I said, that shows integrity. That means they'll pay back the bank. And he said, no, we cannot, by I said, well, I came to the wrong place. I came to help people like these. So we had a big going back and forth. It took me 4 months. He said, well, if you want, get SBA approval, I work on all that. I work with their accountant. They couldn't speak English well, Tony. And, it really was a labor of love to do this loan. But the thing is, they didn't have hardly any risk. The people were they were stitchers, making coats, and the people were bringing the material. They were cutting it, stitching it. People were coming back for it. So they didn't have to go and sell it. All they needed was more space. They had so many orders that they were refusing. And I said, these people need this building, and they will create more jobs. So long story short, we got the loan through, and it became a big, it's on a video that Bank Boston did on a successful client. But, I consider that a big win. They paid off the loan in less than a year. They bought another building and bought a house, and, they always thanked me for it anytime I saw them, that I made a difference. So that was a big win for me, and I didn't do it for that. I just thought it was the right thing to do.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, and in fact, doing the right thing to do and having that as a cornerstone of leadership has been a theme throughout all of our interviews.
Yeah.
So those are some of the wins. What about the challenges in your career? Something that really challenged you? Maybe you see it as a failure, but it taught you a lot. Do you have any of those?
One thing that come to mind in terms of challenges, being a lender. There were instances where you want to make the loan, your gut feeling telling you this will help the client, it'll help their company, but just because their financials not in place, things not in place, you have to say no. And I remember one particular incident. There was this prominent doctor in Boston, and he had clients from Hollywood and all over the world. When they had the Concorde, clients would put him on that and have him in Switzerland and all over. He was that good. And he was doing a major project, and I was introduced to him. We had a good relationship, and everything sounded good until I got his numbers and his financials, and I looked at it, and there was no way we could have made the loan. So, we had already done dinner and, had a good thing going, a good relationship, and I had to decline him. And I took the letter to his office. I explained to him why. I showed him, and I spoke to his CPA, who understood, and I told him the things he could do to improve and come back. And we still stayed friends. On a business level, and my manager at the time, he called me in his office. He said, Alex, I want to ask you something. And I said, what is it? He said, how come I see a pattern with you? When you decline these people, most of the other lenders, people mad at them, they don't talk to them, they send nasty letters to the bank, but these people like you, even though when you decline them. And he said, what is it? What's your secret? And I said, I don't know if there's a secret, but I try to treat people as human beings. And I think most of the time the disconnect comes with the tone. It's how you present the decline to them and make them feel that they're worthy and they could come back. I mean, if they can't come back, you tell them that too. But so I think that was a struggle for me to learn to say no and still maintain that relationship. And I always think about the corporation I'm working for to make sure that I represent them well.
Right, that makes sense. But actually, there was a lesson in there, which I don't know if it's common practice, but it surprised me that you did this. When you said no to that doctor, Alex, you didn't say no to him. You walked over, you looked him in the eye, you walked him through the no, and you told him how to get to a yes.
Yeah.
I mean, was that common practice?
No, and that wasn't common practice. People just send a decline letter and never even call the people. Never call.
So I think that's the secret sauce. As soon as you told the story, I thought, okay, that's awesome. I mean, that truly is going above and beyond. But like you said, at the heart of it, you realize that you're not dealing with another business. You're dealing with another human being.
Yeah. And I had another doctor, as you brought that up, and he was in a different position. 5 banks were running him down. he was good in terms of giving the loan. And he said, Alex, after an hour talking to him with my credit officer, he said, I'm not going to do the loan with you. And, I spoke to him a few minutes, and when we were leaving, I shook his hand, and my credit officer was there. And I said, you'll be doing the loan with me. And he laughed, and when we went to my car, my credit officer, she was all red in her face. She said, Alex, you got a lot of guts to tell the doctor that. I said, no, I'm telling you, he'll do the loan with us. And I said, all I want from you is to give me a chance. And I worked with him, coming down to the end. It was a few months. And he said, he basically said, I'll give you the loan. I'll sign the commitment letter, which he did not. And what I did the next day, I called him. I have his cell phone. I still know his number off the top of my head. And I said, I'll be around that area, around 10 a.m. Will you be in your office? And he said, yes. Okay, I'll be there. And what I did, Tony, I brought a team of people from cash management, from payroll, from the branch manager to one of my assistants. I had 5 people in there. And I told him, all you have to do, introduce yourself. What do you do? Give him a business card. You don't have to do anything else unless he asks you a question. So when we went, he said, what is this? I said, well, you told me you were signing the commitment letter last night, and I did not get it. So I came here to show you what I was telling you all these months, that when you work with me, I am a relationship manager. You'll have a relationship with me, and this is my team. And he's like, wow. He pulled out the commitment letter. He wrote it. He signed a check for me, the commitment fee. And he said, nobody never did this. He said, the 5 other banks, my CPA is trying to get me to go to one of the banks. I never even saw the lender. And you always in my office. These last few months, you will drop in. Now you bring your entire team. There's no way I cannot do this loan. I can't do it in another bank. So that's the kind of, I think it's the people touch. You got to have that touch. And it just comes. It's nothing I read in a book. I just try to think how I could get through to these people.
That's an amazing story.
And make a difference, yeah.
Alex, we're going to run out of time soon.
Sure,
but before we do, I want to ask you a question. With this path that you've taken, and you're obviously, and from what little I know of you personally, you're a very strong, caring people person.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, who taught you that? Or are you self-taught? How did you learn to be the leader that you've become?
Well, one of the things, I always give credit to my grandfather, who was a successful businessman. He'd had a lot of businesses. He always prided himself in not working for anybody. I grew up around him up until I was 13 years. We moved not far away, so I've been around him. He always loved education. And he was in real estate. He had a retail business. He had a cocoa estate that he worked in every day, so he got that exercise. He sweat. He used to be out of the bathroom, the shower, 5 a.m. every morning. And one day he told me, he said, if you want to be successful in life, you must get up before the sun. Don't ever let the sun, get up before you. You always had to be, and you hear it in different ways. The early bird catches the worm and stuff. But I look up to him, and, he was like a mentor to me, not formally, informal. And he lived 106 years, never went to a doctor in his life, had 18 children. And just his life, I should write a book about him.
You're not kidding. I mean, You're throwing about these facts like they're just normal. Oh, it's 106, 18 kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a dynasty.
Yeah. He was very, anything he did, he was number one. And so that's how I learned from him. Anything you do, try to do your best. Try to do it in integrity. Treat people as human beings. And that's how he treated the people who worked for him. He had people work for him he had like 4 or 5 businesses running. I loved the way he dressed, his sense of humor. So I got a lot from him.
Amazing. Simply amazing.
Yeah.
Alex, we have to wrap it up there for this episode. Mm-hmm. But before I let you go, people are going to want to find out more about you. How can they do that, Alex?
Well, my website is alexstephen.com. You could learn a lot about me there, my bio, my coaching, my books. I have 4 books out. And it's all there. And also my email is alex@alexstephen.com.
Alex, thank you so much for taking the time out to be a guest on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, Impact Nation, you've heard it here. There's been so much wisdom shared on this short 20-minute show. Take one thing, put it into your leadership toolbox, practice it for the next 6 months, and the promise is that you'll be a far better leader in 6 months' time than you are today. So until next week's episode, this is Tony Sherman, your host and guide of Impact Teams Radio, saying have a great week.
That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. Now go and apply these few gems. Make the wisdom you have heard your own. If you want to be part of our launch success, then please go to impactteamsradio.com/love and tell the world. If you want more and never want to miss a beat, please go to impactteamsradio.com/subscribe. If you have 3 minutes, we would love to see a positive review on iTunes. And until next time, remember to act on what you've learned, and you'll be ahead of most of the world. Impact Teams Radio.